We're going live.
Going live.
We're going live.
All right.
Okay, we're live, baby.
All right. Sorry, Stephan. Looks like I just want to make sure we don't have any trouble here. But it looks like we're all good here. So, welcome to this wonderful edition, first season again, Roots, Heart, Soul. Let me try it again, Roots, Heart, and
Soul.
All right. All right. Podcast. I am Chef Todd Richards along with Chef Stephan. We are broadcasting live every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 p.m. on West Coast. Everywhere in between, you got to get in and fit in because I can't keep up with all these time zones. I am, it will be remiss to say, I am broadcasting live somewhere near Stephan. He's in New York, but in Haiti, but I am in St. Lucia today. Because it is birthday week and everything like that. So we are getting a birthday edition of Roots, Heart, Soul podcast. And Roots, Heart, Soul podcast is based on my book, Roots, Heart, Soul, with Amy Condon on HarperCollins. And we are on Heritage Radio Network, a great network for all podcasters alike around the world.
Yes, we are. And our guest tonight is none other. And I say that with so much joy.
That made me blush.
And I say that with so much joy because I have so much admiration for her. Our guest tonight, our special guest tonight, is none other than Miss Cherie Williams, Miss V. Cherie, the executive director of Cuisine Noire. Welcome, Miss V. Cherie.
Thank you. Thank you both for
having me. It is such
a
pleasure to have you on our podcast tonight.
And it's an honor to be here. Thank you.
It is an honor to have you, a Chicagoan. I have to say, so Chicago, a University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, UIC, fighting the Illini, we're making our way back, Big Ten. We are working our way back. We are respectable in basketball again, where we should be. Football it has never been good, so we won't claim that. We've never done that well. But welcome to our podcast.
There is something to be said that the last three guests that we've had are all from Chicago.
Oh, see, we're good people. Midwest. Midwest.
We're having an issue here.
Yeah, well,
we're going to have an issue with this Chicago thing.
Well, first of all, you as a Haitian can definitely appreciate Chicago better than no other. So
Absolutely.
don't hate on us. Because we're that spectacular. Honestly, I'm going to say this. Chicago is the best food city in the world. It is multicultural, first of all, but when you get down to the roots, heart, and soul of eating, you have to go to Chicago to eat. And if you don't go there to eat, then you're just going every place else. That is my biased opinion. I am biased when I speak that, so
I am absolutely very proud to say that, that I love Chicago.
Chicago loves you back. So
Chicago is definitely a city that has tickled my fancy.
Yeah,
I have to say.
Well, we won't talk about your fancy until the end of the show when we still get you all. Cherie, sorry, I hate to digress here, but I've been trying to get Stephan married over here for the last year or so. So every time he starts talking about himself, I'm out here taking the applications for him. But anyway, I digress. Let's get back to the real conversation here. So you are in Oakland now. Is that correct? Are you still out west, or where are you right now?
So I'm in Oakland. I moved out here right after college. So it's been 26 years now. So, and I've never gone back necessarily, just to visit, of course.
Of course.
But yeah, this is home now.
So what is the West Coast food scene like right now? Because we see it, we hear about it. We saw after COVID, a lot of chefs left New York and went all to the West Coast. But really, where is West Coast food right
You know, we still are really that whole farm to table fresh feel, right? So definitely we're there. I would say when you look at Chicago, New York, Atlanta, um, you know, to me, the diversity isn't necessarily there from a variety of different concepts. You do have the Caribbean is represented, of course, Central America, i.e., Mexico is represented. But I personally, when I go to the other cities, I do love some of those food concepts. So, but it's still a good food scene.
now?
Still a
Okay.
good food scene in terms of soul food. Just your everyday American breakfast type of deal. Some Asian fusion places, but if I had to choose, I would definitely do a Chicago, a New York, or Atlanta, Philadelphia food
Yeah.
scene.
Right.
That those are my. I have to admit, those are my jams. Better.
Okay.
So before we dive into who is Ms. V. Cherie Williams, we got to talk a little bit about, who Ms. V is in terms of her accomplishment, but also some of her work, some of her body of work. So award-winning James Beard two times, two
This one,
times.
but I'm claiming it. I'm claiming it.
All right. Right. Go ahead.
Okay. And executive director of the non-for-profit, the Global Food and Drink Initiative. And honestly, this is really what I mostly want to dive in, because I think our audience still don't know that about you.
Right.
I think everybody knows what cuisine noir is about. You know, you've really put black and brown talents within the food and beverage industry on display with Cuisine Noir, and that is huge, because there is no real publication within the food and beverage industry that really does our people justice, in my opinion. And I stand corrected if I'm wrong.
No, right now I'm proud to say we are really the only solely uh, magazine that focuses all the time on food, drink, and travel across the African diaspora, right? So you have
Mm.
those that dib and dab into it, right? So they're doing stories here and there, but meantime, their business, their lifestyle, their tech, there's something else. But we really have owned this niche of telling these stories and really digging deeper into the diaspora. I think we pioneered that really as well, of really going deeper into these stories and bringing us all together, especially around food. So that is something I'm really proud of.
So
And
my question is, I'll let you fall right back up, Stefan. Is really, but why food? I mean, we are a multi, forms of art forms. We're in music, song, dance, and even on the other side, because food is just not just something that we're doing in a form. It's scientific as well. But why food? Why the taste of the diaspora that you focus on?
So I'll share the backstory of Cuisine Noir, which I share because it is a proud of how I got into this. So originally, Cuisine Noir was founded by Chef Richard Purnell. And unfortunately, we lost him back in February to cancer. And
Mm.
so, I'm at the heart a writer, a journalist, and he had approached me being a chef and saying, you know what, I'm looking at Food and Wine and all these other publications, and I'm not seeing Black chefs. So I was like, oh my goodness, this is great. And I was really freelancing and looking at what would be my niche as a journalist that I wanted to get into. He just so happened to be a chef and start to bring in food. Now, who doesn't love to cook? You have all these memories, but
Mhm.
there was just something that really stuck, that really just took off in me. And then we're in California, right? So we have access to all of the Black winemakers that majority are here prior to what you're seeing nowadays when it's really has grown. But before 15 years ago, most of the Black winemakers were here. And so, with him being in that connection and me saying, you're right, that is an opportunity there. That's just how I got into food. Now, I would say, I share the story and it's hilarious being from the Midwest.
Mhm.
My parents were really simple Black parents, soul food, et cetera, et cetera. So I only ate iceberg, right? That's the lettuce. And I always say when I first came out here in college, I worked for an advertising agency and they served mixed greens and all of this. And I remember it coming out in front of me and I was like, what is
Yeah,
this?
they ain't lettuce.
This is not iceberg,
And that sure as hell ain't no greens.
exactly. That is like one of the first food memories I remember because I was really like, I don't know what this is. And so it just really taught just something that just grew. And then over the years, just seeing how we are connected as Black people and from, our recipes and the ingredients. And it just really started to help me dig a little deeper into who I am as a Black person, still digging into finding my culture, my heritage, leading back. So it gives me an opportunity to dig and to bring together. And at the heart of who I am, I love humanity. I love storytelling. I love our
Mm,
differences. And it's just a good way of breaking the ice and showing similarities, and especially in today's world that's so divisive. So,
mm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now you talk about what, what the beginnings of what cuisine noir,
mhm,
um, how cuisine noir started. But I'm gonna try to go a little deeper into the question.
mhm.
Is why do you think cuisine noir from this beginning till today is so important in the space that we have, especially now?
Right. I've been talking about this. So, there's no denying that we have cultural similarities and experiences as Black people, no different than someone who's Italian, someone who's Puerto Rican, someone who's Haitian, right? So, Stephan, you have within the Haitian culture, there are experiences that you have as a Haitian man that I don't have as a Black woman, but then there's Black experiences that we have as Black people, right? And so, what is important is, you know, I think why we dig a little deeper now is when we first started, I didn't have language, to be honest with you, around microaggressions, around, what people not really checking for us. So it wasn't that we don't want you in the magazine. There was a deeper reason behind why Black people weren't in magazines. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so now that all this language, and I have to really give credit to, um, although as horrible as it was, 2020 was such an eye opener for me in so many ways of giving me that language to say, oh my goodness, what I've been experiencing as a Black publisher, that's what that was.
Yeah.
So now I think it's important that and then this is the other thing too. I remember I've always wanted to talk about Black chefs, and we keep it Black chefs because, again, that's what we were founded on, of telling these stories. And people will be like, well, don't you want to share other chefs? No, I want to talk about the Black experience because we need a safe place to talk about. You know what? When I'm in the kitchen, someone is calling me this or this is happening. I'm still a Black man and I'm still getting pulled over by the cops. I'm still getting denied going into this and that. As much as we don't want it to play a role, our Blackness does. And we need a safe place where, you can talk about Chef Todd. I don't know if this is your experience, but you can talk about your experience as a Black chef because it has something to do with it, or your identity, or someone saying, what, soul food is not real food. Soul food is this. Ew, you do that. Ew, you do that. What are you? So there's a place of why this is important to be able to say that, see how you feel. Because I have been told by others, although you may write for other publications, there's, some of the words that we may say to express ourselves, edit it out. Or,
Well,
you talk about something that's not safe for advertisers, Black Lives Matter, edit it out. You know what I mean? So we definitely honor Blackness. We honor culture to 1000%.
It's such a great answer. I mean, we look at the Paris Olympics is happening right now, and we see as proud as we are of our culture, we don't have the full story about what happened to Serena Williams over in Paris, but there's controversy, even in there, that someone could be so accomplished, and that the way that we show up in these circles,
Yeah.
you wonder how much did we truly accomplish. For all those who just joined us, we are the Roots Heart Soul podcast. Chef Todd Richards here, Chef Stephan, with Cherie Williams. And Stephan, I know you got some pressing questions over there. I saw the question. I was like, hell, I don't want to sit on this hot seat to answer all these questions. So Stephan, what's the next question? Yeah.
Well, there's a connection that Cherie and I have we've had for quite a bit. But one of the stories that I remember that we dove into, you and I, is during the time when a chef like Marcus Samuelsson, who wrote his one of his cookbooks that's supposedly celebrated and celebrated the African diaspora, who took such an iconic dish like the pumpkin soup and really did something completely different with it. But then, instead of saying this is my rendition, or this is my version, or this is what inspired me, he used the word the Liberty soup, which is what this soup is really all about. Because this soup not only has a cultural importance, but it also has an historical importance. And you specifically brought myself and a couple other people together, and we had this huge discussion about how important it is to be historically correct.
Yeah.
And when we talk about certain things.
Absolutely.
Because there was a lot of backlash that came back to Marcus, and not that he was malintentioned,
right,
to say the least, but I found that he may have misstepped a little bit in his approach.
Right. And then who knows how much if he really how much involved he was with doing that, right? Because we know that as well. But it is very important that I don't want to guess about Haitian culture, whatever. I need to go to the source and you tell me, because that's not one thing that I don't want to misrepresent is this the way I do this? Is this the way that, if that's correct? So if you're going to pay homage to a recipe or a story or whatever of another culture, have some type of representation on the side to verify that. One thing we're doing now in our two columns that we've launched, our cooking and culture, is we're grabbing back on different, and we're going to be touching all around different cultures of different styles, the way we do things. But I'm like, what, we need to make sure that we have community experts or professional experts who can really vouch for that. It's not just us writing up something just to write up something. And that's why sometimes some of our stories take a little longer to come out, because we are talking to people, we're getting on the ground, and we're interacting with the people as a true representation. So you really, to your point, I see it all the time. So many things that are not correct. And the problem with that is it goes out into the world, into people who don't know any better, are not familiar with the Haitian soup, right? And they think that that is correct, right? So it's like going out and representing soul food potato salad with raisins in it. No one doesn't know that. And now you think soul food potato salad got raisins in it, and it doesn't, right? So
certainly it does not.
And really, to Chef Todd's credit, not because he's my brother, but because the respect that he has shown in writing his book as a celebration of Pan-African cuisine, he went. Not only did he go into the communities, but he asked somebody like me to join him in this venture. And we actually sat down and we talked about things, and we talked about the historical significance. We talked about the cultural significance, and he really showed a lot of respect in that instance on when he's putting this recipe and in his own spin into a dish. He showed a lot of respect into his writing, and that's one of the things that I thought was missing
Yeah.
from Chef Marcus Thomason's approach.
But let me ask a follow up question though, because you talked about this in publishing, and one thing that we've learned from, we talked about this on a couple other episodes, Stefan, is like, we learn from hip hop culture, to control your masters, control your own music, and control your own things like that. And and what Cherie has done, with Cuisine Noir is actually, she's controlling that narrative, controlling those things herself. I would be, would be hard for me to say that he might have wrote the recipe. I don't, but did he really write the book and understanding how publishing works? And are those things authentic to what? At the end of the day, we as writers, might, we sign off on things and also our names attached to it. But really, in the publishing world, should we, how does that really work? Because and we get questions about how to become writers all the time, and I'm not a writer, I'm a chef, but how do people approach that to make sure that what is actually put on paper is actually telling the whole story and what they can actually control?
I'm actually very um I've always been the person in the class and students be like, y'all, here she goes again asking another question, right? Because I'm just that inquisitive one of looking at stuff and really digging deeper, right? And understanding. And so, for me as an editor here, whenever stories are turned into me, I'm fact checking all the time. There were so many, I'm the first, I'm the first this, I'm the first that. I'm like, no, you're not the first that. We did this article on this person. You know what I mean? So to your point, if someone is working with someone on a book or on something, then hopefully that person that's really doing the majority of the writing or whatever the case may be, do the fact checking and come back and say, I'm not saying this happened, but Chef Todd, are you sure, Puerto Ricans do something like this or what, you know what I mean? Are you sure that's how you make the sofrito in Cuba or whatever? So if they don't know, but if they do know and something's different, just push back and ask questions. That's what I would say. Work with someone who is really understanding of culture, of what's going on, who really has a base. So when something comes across, Chef Todd, and again, not saying you did this, you're not writing something crazy out into the world and it's not fact checked. You know what I mean?
Correct,
I
correct.
think whoever you partner with on a book. I think that's important of their role is to make sure everything is checked and everything is correct.
Well, I
And
mean,
I
as an employer, what sex and stuff, I'm gonna follow up and
no
I'm
no
gonna
go
head
ahead
it
go
over
ahead.
to you. But what's it? But as an employer, the worst thing in the world is that when people send me resumes of places they worked when I was there, when people send me resumes of positions which I had the position. So I know exactly what you're saying. I just want to get that point out. Go ahead, Stefan.
No,
Ooh,
no, 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 not at all, not at all. But I think one of the things that created the most controversy about is the fact that this recipe was published in Essence magazine, and it was no in Bon Appetit magazine, and it was published specifically during January 1st, which is when the soup is most significant. And I think one of the things that I'm thankful for is that my good friend Gregory Gourdet actually
mhm.
picked up the phone and connected me with Marcus, and Marcus shared his heart and his explanation, and saying he didn't mean anything, but and I had to tell him. I said, listen, I think how important it is when somebody else is telling our story, um, so that they're not going on a tangent, when and it's important that we actually stay within the facts. And if you had just said, what, I'm inspired by the soup, that
Right.
would have been that would have been fine with us. That would have
I
been
mean,
fine with us.
but the crazy thing, Stefan, is that throughout all this controversy and everything that you're speaking of, the damn soup was good. I mean, that's so I mean, as a chef, even when you get things wrong, you still sometimes get things right. And we talk about our
Absolutely.
culture, sometimes we get things wrong. We're not a monolith. We don't cook the same. I've learned so much
Yeah,
in writing this book with you all, and reading articles that Sharia is. Like, I don't know everything, and I was like, damn, I didn't think about it that way. And is that the purpose of us being writers? Is that the purpose of being on Roots Heart Soul podcast? Is to have these conversations and really talk about us as a variety and of people, and not just one group of people that just cooks collard greens a certain way. My sister and
absolutely.
I grew up in the
Absolutely.
same household and do not cook collard greens the same way. I don't know where she got that crazy ass recipe from. you know it's not what my grandmother taught me, but maybe she went next door with her young boyfriend and learned it over there. All right, so just to recap right quick, we are Roots Heart Soul podcast. Todd Richards here with Chef Stephan and Cherie Williams. A Chicagoan. I'm proud to say a Chicagoan. Throughout, and we're coming up on a half hour here, and we will be. Honestly, I'm just glad all three of us here, because we lost a really good person, over this past week, and it saddened me, to talk about Wayne Johnson, and just not being, here anymore, a pioneer, and at the young age of 66. I'm saying young because I'm turning 53 on Thursday, and so hopefully we all get to that age, in kindness, but just understanding what he accomplished up in Seattle, in the farthest regions from Black culture. Really, when you talk about it, and then you spawn on other chefs that came out of, like Eduardo Jordan, who came out of that area, up there and things like that, and in Sharia on the West Coast. And that's why I started the podcast asking about the West Coast, because I really wanted to pivot to the Northwest and really talk about his influence on the food, and really what is black food in the Northwest up there. Now we have Gregory, just won a beard award as well. What is our food in that corridor of the country?
I think the great part is, and this is another thing that we've always stood on, is let chefs, Black chefs, be who you are, right? Your question, Todd, let you define what that is and not put you in a box. Because again, that's where all the experiences, whether it's cultural, as well as your work experiences, your personal experiences, all of that comes into play. And so having, as you guys know, you're artists as chefs, you don't want to be put into a box. You want to be able to have that creativity draw in from different places and bring that in. So as you know, there's Caribbean spots. Eduardo and his restaurants, he was really doing some really nice sort of, I call it in a way foo-foo-ish, but he was doing his take on fresh ingredients, seasonal ingredients, looking at the different techniques and what he was doing. And so the great part was he was able to really invent the type of food that he wanted to create. I still say along the West Coast, it really is, and not saying that it isn't anywhere else, but it is using seasonal, right? Using those approaches, the less is more type of approach, looking at flavor, looking at color in the dishes. But then you've got your Caribbean spots, right? And you've got Gregory Gourdet, right, with Khan in Portland. You've got a lot of great scene in Portland that's really doing some different concepts there. Then you've got your Jamaican represented in terms of the Caribbean. So I think Haiti, Jamaica, trying to see what other Caribbean countries are represented on this coast for the most part. But it is just a different feel, just a different vibe from East Coast to West Coast. It just really is. Not good or bad, or it is what it is. It's just a totally different vibe.
For you two who know Chef, uh, who know him better than I did, and I connected with him a few years ago because I was watching the program of Fair Start, and I wanted to implement that in Haiti, and develop in because I saw so much discrepancy in the food and beverage industry, especially the culinary arts, in Haiti, and I wanted to change that when I made the move back to Haiti in 2010. for you guys who knew him better, I'm reminded of something a professor of mine at Johnson and Will said to me. He said, no matter how many accolades you receive in your career, what you leave behind in terms of giving yourself to others, to influencing others, to sharing your knowledge with others, will last even more than any awards and any accolades you can receive in your career. Um,
Absolutely. And when you look at, and I don't, I can't say that I know of his work. I unfortunately did not have a chance to speak with him. But when you look at chefs, in his era, right? So then going to like Chef Randall, Leah Chase, all of Patrick Clark, all of them really were so passionate and they were givers back and sharing their knowledge to the next generations of chefs behind them. Right. And so I think that was important. It was the groundbreaking, the pioneer when, everyone, okay, now let's be a doctor, let's be a lawyer, let's be this, let's be that, going against the grain and being a chef and being a cook, etc. When it's a time that it's looked down on, I think that is to really persevere and to do that, and then have other chefs be proud of that and to give back. I think that speaks to your point about the legacy that he's leaving behind. You may know him for good food, but you also know him most importantly by his heart.
I mean, I think the connections, always that 7 degrees of separation. When I think about him, and I think about Erica, Dupree, one of the best, pastry chefs. That's how I met Wayne Armadeus, and it came up in that era of things like that through Joe Randall, and Daisy Gordon, is up there as well in Seattle. That it really just shows that we're not just in the South, or we're not just in New York, or we're not just in Midwest, things like that, that we have ventured to all regions of the country, and our food is far reaching, as well. I want to talk about something that's really kind of, just still pressing in my mind, of soul food, and a lot of times, Stephan and I talk about economics a lot, and I am big on Black economics. In our community, where we can charge X amount of dollars for the dishes that we sell, and as a person who has seen a lot of articles and written a lot of articles on our food and everything like that, I think a lot of times people miss the mark when they want to celebrate it, but I don't think they give it the price point that it should be reached. That and things. If you look at Black Twitter, or it's X now, or Black TikTok and everything like that, and everybody's up in arms for $36 oxtails right now.
Right.
But really, I mean, it's, first of all, it's only one on a cow. Secondly, they take how long to really be good. So, but in the same token, if we went to somebody XXX steakhouse and got a ribeye or the tomahawk for 135, we have no problem,
Mm.
dropping it. So how do we help ourselves? I can't fault anybody else for that type of colorism when it comes to food. How do we help ourselves in understanding the value of our food in publications?
That is a good question, and it's a really from a standpoint of value, right? Of us, what we place value on what we want to place value on. So to your point, right? And we do what we want to do. We go where we want to go, and we buy what we want to buy. And so, I think we just need to continue. We want to continue to uplift soul food, and what it is, and the goodness of it, just like any other cuisine, right? And I think just as chefs, anyone owning restaurants, just continue to keep doing that and be proud of that. And I think also the narratives around it is something too. When we talk about, if you talk about, well, it was scraps and they took what they had and da 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 da, that may be, it's true, but at the same time, it has turned into something amazing. So I think the narratives around it, to your point, is very important in making sure that, we're elevating this. The one thing that I've had to do too is having the eyes of one interviewing so many restaurant owners, be doing all of this, I totally get it and I understand it. And so I think, sometimes we're just a little bit harder when it comes to our restaurants. I have to say, the experience has to be 10 times better than if we go over here. I'm
Mm,
sorry, I don't think that's
mm.
doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen. And so I think we just got to continue to really be positive, do those narratives, and get out there and show the greatness of it. And that it's an even playing ground when it comes across any type of cuisine. So I think the narratives, to your point, we just got to keep putting it out there and show how great it is. It's still just as good as Italian food, just as good as Greek food, Chinese food, anything else. So
Not forgetting the fact that the price of oxtail has tripled in the last 7 years.
yeah.
But that's your fault, Stefan, and that's my fault as chefs. That is our fault. Because first of all, we the ones that took it out of the hood and put it on all our upscale restaurant menus and things like that. Just like like pork belly. I mean, pork belly was the same thing. And beef belly and all these things. Beef cheeks and things that people say are scraps. They never been scraps to us. We have been one of the groups of people that always use the whole animal. So they weren't scraps. They were just part of the animal that we had to make sure that we made tender, and we had to make it delicious, and we had to make sure our kids eat it. So I can't say that it's anyone else's fault except for my own, because I'll be the first one to tell you I will charge you $40 for oxtails. I have no problem with it. I know my food costs. I know that's
Neither,
where I pay
ni-
these
neither
employees.
do I. Neither do I.
Yeah, right.
Cherie, we want to talk a little bit about this initiative, the global that you've started, the reason behind it. What is the
Yeah.
story? Tell us more, because I think it's a really important project, and I think everybody should get behind you on that one.
Thank you. So there's so much to unpack in this that goes on. So long story short, 2020 again, everything's going on. George Floyd is murdered. You've got the Central Park, that nonsense that happened there. And, meanwhile, I'm still trying to figure out as a Black publisher, what is going on that you have these brands that are reaching out to consumers, Black consumers, and we know how much we spend, how much we have, our buying power, but yet they're not giving respect and dollars to Black media. And I couldn't figure it out. So then, one night I'm just like, you know what? But meanwhile, so there's that piece. But meanwhile, there was a lot of work that I was doing behind the scenes in terms of just advocating, making sure that we were represented, making sure the right things were represented, connecting people to different things, and doing all of this work and advocating and education behind the scenes. And so one night in July, I said, I was trying to figure it out and rack my brain. And I said, you know what? I think the next evolution for us is a nonprofit. And then that way we could still be a media nonprofit that produces Cuisine Noir. Then we also launched our podcast, but we didn't have it at the time. But then we can also do other projects, because around that time too, I'm digging deeper into finding out how sugar cane, and I'm like, I go to the Caribbean, I go to, over here in South America, and you follow the slave trade and how sugar cane was. And I'm seeing all of this chocolate. No one knows that Africa produces over 70% of cacao, or, grows chocolate out of the world. I'm seeing all of these. I'm like, you know what? There's deeper stories, bigger projects that are there. So in August of 2020, I founded the Global Food and Drink Initiative. And that really is to, as we are doing some things behind the scene, we are publishing Cuisine Noir. We are producing our podcast, but then we've got some bigger projects that we're doing that will circle around books. It's going to be some programming. I've identified a big legacy project that I'm working on that we will do too. And so it's really going to go deeper into reaching out into the world. And as I like to say, preserving these stories, because I don't want future generations and anyone to have trouble finding out where are Black stories, who are Black chefs, what is the national cuisine of Haiti versus, all of that. I want a night to continue to be a central place where all of that comes to. And that's where we're making the Global Food and Drink to be, is that central place where you can find Black food culture from all around the world. One stop shop.
I mean, that is a true. I mean, man, I'm just sitting here like, wow, who's gonna head that up? Because that's, you know. And you said a nonprofit. I said, well, if you want a nonprofit, open a restaurant in Atlanta right now. That's saturated. I can give you another nonprofit right now. But that, I mean, just tying all the food and everything like that together, is really a not only a fantastic thing to do. I mean, it's a lot of work, and it takes someone like you to really bring all that together, understanding the dynamics of food, and as a publisher yourself, that really shows dedication to our culture. We gotta we're not going to do the full hour today because I am on vacation here, but we do have a few more questions here to
Absolutely,
reset here.
absolutely.
Roots Heart Soul podcast. Wait, you say you're going to just start a podcast? We're going to get you on Heritage Radio Network. That's the network we're on. So we're going to make that happen. So
That
that's
would
already
be
done. Signed, sealed, delivered. That's
That
done. We
is
got
great. That
you.
and I want to add this too with the
Yeah,
reason around the nonprofit too is like I was
yeah,
saying earlier, it is tough out here as a Black publisher. It really
right,
is. When you
right.
look at all of the dollars that they have, why are we still asking some of these companies, and I will not name them, to at least give us 5% of advertising dollars? And so, again, I needed to look at a business model that's one going to allow us to be more impactful in the work that we do, but also be able to be funded by, i.e., our readers and other foundations who believe in this work. And so that hence is one of the reasons why I founded the nonprofit, because we just don't get the support from sponsors and advertisers. We don't.
So
I mean,
hence,
that's
hence,
why she's here, though. Go ahead, Stefan.
so hence my question. Very important question, and we've discussed this many times, not only together, Todd and I, but we've discussed this within other platforms that are trying to really create a space to bring the black and brown talents of the
Mhm.
food and beverage industry out. Why is that? Why do we have to fight so hard to get those dollars? Um, that in my opinion we are as deserving as I think the work that you're doing with Cuisine Noir speaks for itself. The work that my dear friend and business partner Fabrice Armand is trying to do with Creole Food Festival, the
Mhm.
same. The same for Gregory Collier with the Beehive
Yeah.
Food and Wine Festival.
Yeah.
Why is that? Why
You
why why is that?
I'll give my opinion as I've been looking at what's going on. You know, as much as we want to believe, there really has not been any. There's been a lot of talk after 2020 around supporting Black owned businesses, supporting Black organizations, but it really has not. There has been some work, but there's still not enough. So I say that to say there's still a lot of gatekeepers that don't understand Black culture and are not comfortable with it. I will say a lot of the gatekeepers that I would have to get through at these advertising agencies, they don't take the time to understand that there's other Black publications out here outside of Essence, Jet, and Black Enterprise, which are our legacies, right? There's more than them out there that are doing amazing things, and really taking the time to understand what are the nuances. There's also some things of advertisers, there's a block list, right? So there's certain advertisers don't want to advertise on sites that may say things that are uncomfortable around Black culture, right? So Black Lives Matter, like, oh my goodness, you know what I mean, if we're talking about other things. And so there's still a lot of bias out here, and just still not moving the needle and making sure that there's enough room that, as Black people, we're getting some of these dollars versus some of the, non-Black people that are doing these festivals. It still just flows. And I'm sorry, there's a racial component to that. I'm sorry, you can't tell me otherwise. It still exists that we as Black people are not getting the dollars, et cetera, that we need to move these forwards. And we have to look at who is making some of these decisions. We
I
just
mean, the racial component, has been, prevalent in the last couple of weeks, especially after, President Biden stepped down, and now we have Kamala, Harris in there as VP and things like that. So we see this, prevalent. I didn't know that, that people were so interested in Black culture until you have a VP president, a person running for office, and qualifying. I mean, how other people are qualifying Blackness, I think right now is one of the things that is important to our conversation, and we always bring it back to food. Like how can you qualify who's Black when you don't come in our community, you don't eat our food, on a daily basis, or when it's popular, it's Southern. When it's unpopular, it's soul food. When it's when it's you don't want to talk about the border, it's fine, but tequila and limes and salsa are still in the top five imported things in our country. We always have this kind of divide. But what do we need to present to the next president of the United States, to talk about Black food and Black culture and how to celebrate it even more, because it's always been the linchpin of the country, even from the other sides with music, when jazz started, and we got this birth, of a nation in that standpoint. What do we need to tell this political, society of what we need to talk about our culture and our food and our contribution to America?
We need the right people in these positions. It is disastrous when you put people in there who don't understand or don't really want to understand that, what, again, like Vice President Harris said, it is our differences that give us the strength, right? And so you hear a lot of lip service of someone that says, "Oh, I like this. I've been there." Da 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 da. Okay, but what are your actions say, and what does your record say? Do you have a record of bringing people together and really having these conversations? So for me, Todd, it really is about making sure that they got the right person in that position to be able to bring these conversations to the forefront. Because when you don't, you just can't get anything through, and that is in so many things. If you have the wrong gatekeeper there, it's just not, it doesn't work. And I think, going back to your question, some of when Fabrice and Greg, these gatekeepers that are handling the money, it's just so hard, one, to get to them, but then also who are they tied up to that you just can't anyway. So it's just there's so many barriers that we have to cross. But again, you gotta have someone that is a good advocate for us and truly understands this work. Truly, truly. So look, if they hiring a food person, I'll take it.
All right. All right.
Yeah, right
I mean,
there.
you're in Cali now. I mean,
I know,
in Chicago, we
together.
we can get the Obama Center and get an endorsement. Get you in Oakland now. I mean, like, we need some food representation in the White House. So
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think our friend, the Adrian Miller, the food scholar, is shooting to become the next White House executive chef. So
no,
He'll do it too.
yeah.
so unfortunately, before being that my brother Chef Todd is on vacation and is celebrating his birthday weekend. Cherie, before we're gonna have to bring you back because there's so much more we need to talk about. But before we say goodnight, let us know where we can find you. How do we connect with you? How do we continue to support the Global Food Initiative?
Yes.
Just give us a snippet of that.
Awesome. So you can find us at cuisinenoir.com. That's where all our stories are housed. On social media, we are Cuisine Noir as well, Cuisine Noir _. So Instagram and Facebook. Not active on Twitter or X anymore. So we're just sticking to Meta for the moment. You can find me, V. Cherie Williams. I'm on Instagram as well as LinkedIn. And, we're coming across our 15-year anniversary of Cuisine Noir, which will be September 1st. We
Oh,
started
wow.
raising campaign of saying, please support with a $15 donation, and just making sure everyone knows, this goes back into, there's a lot that goes into putting together a publication. And especially something that's digital online. There's security, there's updates, there's this, there's a lot. When you have just monthly cost alone of having a media outlet of over $500 just off the bat for media. So, all the support that we get, each donation goes back into it. It goes back into any photography, all of our writers that we do, also being able to help anybody else out. So you can go to Cuisine Noir and make a donation. You can go to Global for Good, FORGood.org, to make a donation at any time. We definitely appreciate just supporting our journalism. We're very serious about this. I also want to say I'm very excited. I will announce here on your show that, we're really starting to dig more into climate and food and how it's impacting our communities around the world. So stay tuned for that, because it's a big issue. It really hit home with the Prime Minister of Grenada when Karakou was just destroyed. And he was like, look, we are not causing this global crisis, but yet we are being impacted by it. And that was like, it is so true. It is so true. And so we're really going to start to talk about those two intersections of climate change and food in our communities. So look forward to that going forward in those news narratives. And I'm just excited. So, we got
15 years in. That is crazy. I'm just thinking back. Where was that? Where was that 15 years ago? Yeah. Oh my goodness, that is. I'm just sitting here scratching my head. When this replays, but why is he pausing? I'm scratching my head. 15 years. Cuisine Noir's been around 15 years. That is such a fantastic. Oh my goodness.
That is amazing. That is amazing.
Thank
So
you.
before we say goodnight, let me take the opportunity not only to wish my brother, my business partner, my one of my very best friends, a happy birthday, a happy birthday weekend.
Todd, happy birthday.
Thank you.
May continue to give you the wisdom that you've shared with me, and to continue mentoring me, even more, and teaching me so much more that you've done so far. Wishing you the very best, my friend, and let's make sure that our Black and Brown food and beverage community, please support Cuisine Noir and support the Global Food and Beverage Initiative.
Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely important.
Thank you.
Please follow us on Instagram, Roots Heart and Soul Podcast. Please subscribe to our channel on YouTube, Roots Heart and Soul Podcast. Get in touch with us if you want to sponsor us, if you want to connect with us, if you want to support us. You can support us through Heritage Radio Network. We welcome your support and your continued viewership. Again, thank you for watching us. Thank you for being with us and spending this time with us. Thank you, Cherie, for being such an amazing guest on this special birthday podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, bro. Hey, man. Like I said, I think they got to. I think they went to the warehouse to get some more rum. I think I've drank all the rum on the island already. So I tell them a glass of champagne and espresso starts me in the morning. Rum gets me going through the day. So thank you, Stephan.
For their first medal. So go St. Lucia. So.
Go St. Lucia. Yeah, they had a celebration here. We'll talk about it offline. But again, thank everyone for joining Roots Heart Soul Podcast on Heritage Radio Network.
Thank you.